Okay, thank you all for joining us this morning for this briefing on equity and the current situation that we're going through with the change of schooling that we're currently seeing across Australia. We have got a series of experts here to talk to you today about some of the challenges with particular regards to equity that this issue poses. Each of our experts will be speaking for a couple of minutes and there'll be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. Could I please ask that people mute themselves when they're not speaking? We have got Associate Professor Sue Nichols from the University of South Australia, the Associate Head of the School of Education at UniSA, Professor John Fischetti from the University of Newcastle, where he is Pro-Vice Chancellor, and he is also the President of the New South Wales Council of Deans, and Professor Vaille Dawson, the Deputy Head of School of Education from the University of Western Australia. I'm going to go to John first, who will speak to his area, and then we will move on from there. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Shannon. Good morning to each of you, and thanks for your interest in this important topic. In just a month, schools around the world transformed from this predominantly face-to-face normal, the old normal, to predominantly what I call sort of school or learning from home. And then the hyper speed of this transition, it really exposed a series of profound equity issues. Nearly 2.5 million Australians don't have internet. Many families with access only have one computer or laptop, and that's actually being needed by the mom or the dad or the carer who's actually working from home as well. It's a much more complex thing for teachers and schools to provide the support for students who have special needs or personal learning differences. And my big concern is that physical schools on a day-to-day basis provide safety and caring and nurturing that is absolutely understated. It's something that young people use to thrive in their maybe too complex lives. These places allow vulnerable students who are at risk of loneliness and isolation and hunger to maybe increase their loss of, or they're increasing their self-worth and their loss of self-worth during this really difficult time. Schools are the one place we have in our society where young people can continue and count on adults looking out for them. And my worry is for those kids who need schools to take care of their affective needs, their social emotional needs, are now in many ways lonely and lost at home, and we're going to have to be reaching out to them. The fortunate thing is we have so many great educators who are spending that time doing that, but it's putting an extra burden on teachers to figure out how, for their most needy and vulnerable students, to be there for them.
Thank you, John. I'll now move to Vaille. We're having Sue's just struggling with her audio at the moment, so I'll move to Vaille. Vaille, if you'd like to jump in now, thank you.
Thank you, Shannon, and I concur with everything that John has said. If we ever wanted a situation that was going to show up the educational equity divide in Australia, this is it. This is our moment. I'm particularly concerned about students who are in the final years of schooling, year 10, 11 and 12, and I know a lot of the debate in the media has been about ATAR, how we're going to help those students, how we're going to get them into university. I'm actually concerned about the students who won't be going to university, who are already perhaps unmotivated, disengaged, and as John has said, school is actually one of the few places that are safe for them. It's not just whether there are devices and Wi-Fi available, it's whether when you have homes that are overcrowded, how are those children going to actually cope with the future? I know that schools are preparing work packages, paper work packages for children who don't have devices and Wi-Fi, but they are a very, very poor second. If those children or those young people don't graduate, the long-term impacts on their future lives I really think is going to be irreparable. I guess if we were looking at a solution, as well as providing devices and Wi-Fi, I think that it's essential to have learning centres, and I say learning rather than just a drop-in or an after-school centre, but learning centres where schools that already have teachers that do a great job with these kids, because it's the relationships that are important, those relationships need to be maintained. So if we can have those centres, social distancing, but the teenagers can still interact with each other, they can have one-on-one support from, it may be teachers, it may be education assistants, but to get us through really till the end of the year so that we can continue on with schooling going forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Vaille. Now we've got Sue back on here.
So thanks for the opportunity to speak with you. The whole issue of digital inclusion in education is something that's been concerning me for a while, and particularly in relation to the relationship between parents, children and schools, that three-way relationship. What we're seeing from the research evidence is that the benefits of digital inclusion are not actually extended to everybody, and there's a massive amount of diversity in terms of the community's awareness, their take-up, and the ways that they're using these digital tools. And as well, there's a massive amount of diversity in the marketplace for tools and services that schools are taking up or that parents are accessing in other ways. Quite apart from the pandemic situation, we have some work to do there. But obviously, we're in a very critical situation right now. So it's very important that that schools maintain a diversity of processes that they're using to communicate with their communities, that they engage their communities as much as possible, and in a listening process to find out from those communities what their experiences really are at this time. I also think that schools are in need of resources, and they're in need of them right now. They need support. If we've been into schools and talked to school principals for some research that I'm doing, and they tell us that the IT coordinator is really good at coordinating IT, but that person hasn't ever been given responsibility or training in these broader sort of areas of community engagement, of digital inclusion. And we also know about the massive diversity in the community in terms of people's resources that they have available to them, how reliable those resources are, and their past experience that they've got to call on. So that's where I'm at the moment on this question.
Great, thank you all very much. We've got a chat window open here where people can ask questions, but if people would like to ask questions of the experts verbally, please jump in and do so. An issue that was raised for me while you were all talking that I think is a really important one is, and John, perhaps as the President of the New South Wales Council of Deans, you'll particularly have stuff to say on this, is to me, this whole situation is telling us a lot about the quality of teachers we have across Australia. There's a lot of criticism broadly around teachers and the quality of teachers and what have you. And I look at this situation and I think our teachers are doing an incredible job and the professionalism they're showing through this situation. But would you like to speak to that and how those teachers are going about making sure that students are included when we do have such a diversity?
Yeah, sure, Shannon. I think one of the most compelling issues that's being faced all around the world is the undervaluing that we've had for the multiple roles teachers play in our society, the incredible gifts they have, not just to teach content and the syllabus, but the kind of moral leaders they are and the guideposts they are for our children. And when you pull those away in an unplanned way for an extended period of time, part of the moral fabric of our society feels to be wobbling, because schools are more than a place that children go to watch their teachers work or to let their moms go to work. They're powerful, dynamic moral compasses for our society, and teachers represent that, even if they on a daily basis don't get told how incredible they are. So I think we're going to end up with a lot more appreciation for, at the highest possible level, for teachers. And when you pull that away also, I think families have relied on teachers to be surrogate parents in ways that are difficult for them now to reassume their full parenting responsibilities. Listening, loving, taking time, challenging, all those things which in our day-to-day lives at home for some kids on screens too much or in struggling families who are working so much, just trying to make ends meet, that they don't have the time. So the good news out of all of this is many families have been given the gift of time. They always complain they don't have enough time with their children. Well, guess what? They've been given the gift of time. But the role teachers play in managing our social fabric is so vital. And I'm hoping a new generation of teachers comes forward from this who really understand how amazing opportunity it is to be a teacher.
Sue, Vaille, would either of you like to speak to that issue?
I think that the role of teachers right now is really critical, because in relation to particularly the digital aspect of learning, which is what I'm particularly interested in, is they're mediating this material. They're mediating the whole complex and dynamic sort of landscape of resources for parents and communities. They're curating those materials, they're packaging them up in different ways. And teachers have been doing this for quite some time, but it's particularly critical at the moment. Being able to meet in real time online with your students, your children, and involve the families in that is really, really important at the moment. We're really understanding that more and more, I think. And this idea that we can just put things online and then just wait for people to just pop up there and do whatever with them. We're realising that that's just not enough. And I would say that in universities where I teach, all of our really critical work at the moment is being done in real-time, interactive, virtual classroom environments where we can meet with our students and we can not only teach the curriculum, but actually support them through this really difficult time as well.
We've had a question come through from a journalist about the capabilities of schools and homes, and how do we actually know? Are there data sources available, localized data sources available, where we can actually see the capabilities of schools and homes in different areas? Are any of you experts? Vaille? Yes,
I can't give hard data because this is an area which is literally happening, I mean, certainly in Western Australia over the past few days, in that government schools have only gone to supervision this week. What I can say from speaking to principals and teachers in the schools I work with is that the range of preparedness is huge. So we do have some schools that are incredibly well resourced, where the kids all went home 3 weeks ago. They're dressed in their school uniform every morning at 8:30. They are online with their teachers, and it is almost business as usual. Then we have in some of our regional areas where I know of one school that has 500 students and 400 of them are being provided with paper work packages, because there's neither the technology in terms of devices or the Wi-Fi at home. You could certainly go to the education department, but this is not information that people are ready to even provide now.
Can I jump in here, Shannon? The data that I've seen there from the census is that there's 2.5 million homes without internet connection, and at least 170,000 students who don't have a computer or internet connection in the home. That's a huge number of students, and by and large, I can only estimate, but I would suggest that almost all of those 170,000 are in our public school system.
We're almost out of time, but I just wanted to jump in with a quick question specifically for you, Vaille. You talked about sort of kids who are at the latter years of their schooling. We've got the Education Council meeting later today to talk about what should happen with Year 12 and Year 12 assessments, and should we be putting off assessments? Should we be putting back assessments into next year? Should we be modifying assessments? From your expertise, what would be your recommendation?
Okay, well, I should probably preface it by saying that I teach students who are becoming secondary science teachers, and I was a secondary year 11 and 12 science teacher for a decade. I think the first thing is you stop year 10 exams. That then takes pressure off teachers and that cohort of students. We're certainly not going to have year 12 being repeated in school. Schools don't have the capacity to do that. We'll probably end up with, I guess, what's being called ATAR light, in that it will be a sort of reduced length of exams. The issue about not having any exams, and it does relate to students being motivated to continue and to keep trying, but I do think that at the end of this year, we will need to look at, we can call them master classes, we can call them expert tutorials, that will ensure not just for students going to university, but for students who are about to enter the workforce or go into the to the vet sector, so that there is a catch-up available for them. Teachers are amazing. I mean, I really, my heart goes out to everyone who is a school teacher at the moment. They're dealing with their own stresses as well of, you know, perhaps spouses being unemployed, multiple children at home. Everyone I speak to is, they only speak about the kids. They only speak about their students. That's who they're most concerned about. If there is a teacher in the audience, I just have one little thing I want to say, and it's come out of a UNESCO report that was released last week. If you're a teacher, you'll get this, and it's Maslow before Bloom. I'll stop there.
Okay, we are out of time. I'd like to thank everyone incredibly much for coming along today, to our experts for giving up their time and offering their expertise, for the journalists and the policymakers and the teachers that I know that we've got online who are listening to this discussion. The question of motivation, Vaille, that you mentioned, we're actually running another one of these webinars later this week about how students do stay motivated in a home learning environment. There are a number of issues that we are aware are bouncing along at the moment, that as an organisation, Masira will be trying to help all of the different stakeholders wrap their heads around and make sure that it is being expert informed all along the way. But thank you all very much for your time today, and good luck in this new world that we all find ourselves in.